seems like the first question that gets asked when somebody's contemplating moving into town is what's available for internet.
Welcome to episode 396 of the Community Broadband Bits podcast from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. I'm Lisa Gonzalez. For 8 communities in southwestern rural Minnesota, high-quality internet access isn't a problem as it is in other small towns. That's because Southwest Minnesota Broadband Services, or SMBS, is providing fast, affordable, reliable connectivity to residents and businesses. This week, Christopher visits with General Manager Travis Thies, who shares the story of the network and tells us more about some of their challenges and solutions. Travis describes the communities that SMBS serves and recounts the collaborative effort that resulted in the regional network. Now here's Christopher talking with Travis Thies from Southwest Minnesota Broadband Services.
Welcome to another episode of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. I'm Christopher Mitchell with the Institute for Local Self-Reliance in St. Paul, and for the second week in a row, talking to another guest from lovely Minnesota. This week we have Travis Thies on the show, who is the General Manager for Southwest Minnesota Broadband Services. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to catch up on the network. I've been meaning to reach out to you, I don't know, ever since the network started. In some ways, I feel like I just cheated and would ask Dan Olson how things were going, and he would sort of give me the lay of the land, but it's been many years since I've even checked in. So I'm really excited to get a better sense of everything that's been happening with your remarkable fiber network in southern Minnesota, southwestern Minnesota. But first, for people who aren't familiar, what is southwestern Minnesota? Like, what does that region entail, and what is it like?
A lot of farming communities. There's a lot of farming, some small industry, and so that's kind of the biggest makeup of our area.
So let's talk about how you got into the fiber game. How did Southwest Broadband, which is kind of the shorthand version of describing Southwest Minnesota Broadband Services, how did you get started?
Sure. So Southwest Broadband is really a unique makeup. So back in 2010, we were fortunate enough that we had some local leaders throughout some of the communities that we served that really could see the writing on the wall with broadband and how important that was going to be in order for these communities down here in Southwest Minnesota to really thrive. What happened is back in 2010, we had 7 municipalities in the area get together, form a joint powers. And once that was formed, they basically developed a nonprofit organization, which is Southwest Minnesota Broadband Services, to provide broadband connectivity to 8 rural communities. So we serve 8 rural communities, and of the organization, we're governed by a board of directors. And those board of directors consist of 5 of those 7 original member cities. So we have 7 cities altogether that make up the nonprofit organization, and 5 of those are voting member cities. So that's how we're kind of governed.
So you have 8 cities that you're connecting, or towns, and 5 of them are those ones that took more risk on the project, and that's why they're the voting members.
Yeah. So 5 of those communities they actually contributed loan dollars into making the company, to help get the company off the ground and get started, and I get most of the dollars that came in and helped build the network. Back in 2010, the federal government had the Broadband Initiatives program going on, and so we were able to capitalize on our project. Was a $13 million project, half of that being grant dollars and then half of that being loan dollars. So that's where the dollars came to put this together and to do this build out and provide the connectivity to these communities.
When you say communities, I do feel like people often think of Main Street and the blocks around there, but you're talking about communities that may have a Main Street, but also all the farms around there. I mean, it's a wide radius around that you're talking about that you connect.
Correct. So not only do we serve all the businesses and the homes within the communities, but we also have a 175-mile ring that connects all of these communities, and we use that ring for redundancy purposes. Now, we don't serve the entire county. We're across 3 separate counties. We don't serve all of those counties. We do serve, within about a quarter mile off of our fiber routes that go out through those communities. But one of the nice things that we've been able to do over the course of the last few years is we've been able to partner with a local wireless provider and that has just been huge for us and the folks in our area. Now, not only are we able to provide the high-speed internet connectivity to the folks within those communities, but we're also able to reach out farther than what our fiber can get to. So by partnering with that local wireless provider, we've been able to, provide those speeds to basically everybody across our, tri-county area.
Now, tell me a little bit more about how you got this going, because I think the fact that Wyndham already had a municipal broadband network that allowed you to use their NOC, I assume. How did you interface with them?
Well, that's a good question. So Wyndham was very, very influential as far as helping set up and kind of get the whole concept of Southwest Minnesota broadband services kind of on the radar. And matter of fact, I know that you've talked with Dan Olson, previous general manager of Wyndham Net. He was very instrumental in the setup and kind of getting everybody going. Wyndham Net was, they learned a lot when they did that, and that kind of helped provide all the stepping stones to making Southwest Broadband happen. And Southwest Broadband was able to really capitalize on the use of a lot of those high capital dollar items like the NOC, the head end, things like that for video services and both data services. And so Southwest Broadband was able to save a lot of dollars and not have to make those initial investments and be able to utilize WyndhamNet to purchase those services and eventually pass down and offer through the Southwest Broadband network.
And is that still how you work? Are you still really integrated with Wyndham in the Network Operations Center?
We still work fairly close with WyndhamNet. We have went away, and we've gotten a little bit bigger, and we've been able to provide some of those services on our own now. So we work a lot with WyndhamNet in regards to voice services. Data services, we've kind of converted over, and we've made some investments of our own. And so we're basically providing all of our own data services, all of our own connectivity to multiple data centers that get out to the rest of the world. So back in 2018, prior to 2018, we really relied on WyndhamNet to provide all of the video services that we transported across our network to our customers throughout the communities that we serve. And we did that with an old legacy RF type of deployment. So prior to the build out of our communities, two of our larger communities had their own standalone municipal cable TV systems, and those systems were both kind of reaching their life expectancy and really needed to be replaced. So the timing of Southwest Broadband coming into play was really, really beneficial as far as being able to pick up on where that was really going to leave off. And when we first rolled this out, this was really a data network is really what Southwest Broadband was meant to do, was provide these data speeds, these high data speeds to these rural communities. But because of the makeup of our communities, we have a lot of older demographic that really still, they want access to the linear TV and what we know as traditional cable TV, so to speak.
Right. They don't want to deal with apps, right? They just want to be able to have a clicker and go to watch the Twins or whatever they want to watch, and they don't want to deal with a lot of the other stuff, I'm guessing.
Exactly. So now that Southwest Broadband, we have the network put into place, and we've got the best of the best in regards to a data network, we're still piping in an old RF video signal. So as the pricing and the content kept going up and up and up, we sat there and we struggled with trying to provide a better service and a better product. Well, it really didn't make any sense for us to continue throwing capital at a service and a product that was declining in subscriber rates, worldwide, right? So, that's where we had to get really creative. We looked at, what do we do if we just completely get rid of video altogether? And because of that older demographic, and there was still a lot of demand for that traditional TV service, we didn't feel like we could completely get rid of it. So that's when we really got creative, and we looked out and we tried to figure out every option we could. And then finally we decided, why not try to, in order to keep this, we're really going to have to probably stick with an app-based delivery type of system. So we partnered with another company, and we were able to roll out a decent app-based delivery service and really harness the power of our data network in order to do it. And so we didn't have that big capital investment in going out and building a new TV head end or cable TV head end. We didn't have any of those. We were able to harness the power of the data network and really push that out. So towards the end of 2018, October, November timeframe is really where we completed converting all of our customers, and I think we converted probably about 85% of our original cable TV customer base, which was really, really positive. And we expected to continually see those subscriber take rates probably decline, but really they've really maintained steady, which has really surprised us. So we don't know if that'll be a long-term thing or a long-term offering, but it's filling the need right at this point in time, and we'll see how it goes.
Maybe it helps Gopher Sports is doing a little bit better this year than they had in some previous years for football, especially.
Well, that definitely helps. It definitely helps.
So what app did you end up using?
We rolled out a white labeled app, and we labeled it Southwest Stream. So we have it available to our customers. Now, one of the caveats is that we have to offer it over a closed and private network. So we can only offer it to customers that have our internet service. So customer signs up with our internet service if they're interested in our streaming option. They basically load an app onto their Roku, and we provide them with a set of credentials, and they're allowed to receive that content over that approved app, and away they go. And it's got a traditional cable TV type of look, guide, all that, some cloud-based DVR.
I'm not too surprised to hear you say Roku, because it does seem to be one of the more friendly ones for people who are not very high tech. Oftentimes a very simple remote that they feel comfortable with, and off they go.
Yeah, it really, once it's up and running, it's really pretty trouble-free. The biggest hurdle that we had is, helping assist folks that weren't used to being able to run apps, and that just wasn't their thing. So trying to get them accustomed to understand, how to go in and how to set up a Roku account, and how to go in and add an app or add a channel, and then go in and be able to get that to connect to their Wi-Fi. And a lot of these folks were even folks that didn't have data subscriptions. So that was a big hurdle.
Right. Well, their grandchildren, in many cases, I'm sure, are thanking you quite a bit.
That was definitely the case.
Let me ask you about things that have changed in the area, because I suspect that not far from you, there are still many places that have, maybe they feel lucky to have DSL because there's other places that don't even have that. What has changed in your footprint that you can attribute to the network?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that have changed as far as economic growth. I know, I can count on one hand a number of businesses that had contemplated moving out of the area before we built our network, because they just didn't have access to the bandwidth that they needed to sustain their businesses. Some of the other things that have changed is, now we're starting to see people that maybe grew up in this area coming back to this area and working from home. They're trying to get out of the big cities, and they grew up in small towns, and that's what they prefer. And now they're able to come back to these small towns and work from home based on their ability to have access to the speeds that we're able to provide.
Do you find that people who are in neighboring towns are choosing to come to a rival town, perhaps, because of those speeds?
I tell you what, it seems like, the first question that gets asked when somebody's contemplating moving into town is what's available for internet. And I'm sure that's probably the case, getting to be the case in most areas across the country. It's really obvious that's the important piece, or one of the most vital pieces of determining where folks want to live.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that the local real estate agents are happy to answer that in your towns.
We probably get 4 to 5 calls a week, just inquiring of, does this property have access to broadband? Do they have a fiber line? And if not, can they get it? What's it going to cost to get it? I mean, it really becomes a bargaining tool when working on housing prices.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I feel like the real estate agents aren't always that sophisticated in the more the metropolitan and suburban areas, because they haven't had to worry about it as much. But I know that real estate agents have paid more attention to broadband, but knowing that they're actually calling you now directly to just get the answers is interesting.
Yes.
So you described the challenge of the switching the video product. Have you encountered other challenges along the way?
Not so much challenges, probably just maybe growing pains. When we built the network back in 2011, we integrated a 1 gig ring that fed all of these 8 communities that we serve. And for the first 2 years, we were very comfortable with that being enough bandwidth to serve all of these communities for all of their bandwidth needs. And just today, we're looking at February of 2020. Now we've advanced that up to a 20 gig capacity ring. So it's just really amazing to see the growth and how much demand there is for broadband and how quickly that continues to advance. I suppose the biggest challenge would just be to continually staying ahead of those demands and ahead of those needs, so that we always have a sufficient amount of resources to be able to provide what our subscribers are going to need.
I was just talking to someone in another state. I was talking about a co-op that had built fiber out to a rural area, and how they were getting these remarkable take rates. And even more remarkable, when this organization was planning on building the network, was that the very large, very disliked company that had been serving them before was only getting take rates of like 20 or 30% for their DSL product, and so they assumed there wasn't much demand when in fact there was a demand. It was just for a higher quality service. And that's a roundabout way of sort of of asking you about how the take up has been. Have you seen a lot of interest from the areas? Has it matched what you expected?
I think it's far succeeded what we expected. Right now we're sitting at we're serving approximately 75% of households across, as a whole within these communities. It's excellent, and I mean we get calls every day. The biggest problem that we have is we're still continuing to grow within these communities, because when we first put this project together, unfortunately there was a tsunami over in Asia right after project totals and stuff came in, and it wiped out a couple of the fiber suppliers over there. So the cost of fiber optics went through the roof. So in order to make our project we had to scale back. And one of the things that we did when we scaled things back to try to cut costs is we went back to all these communities. All these communities, we originally were going to put a fiber drop to every home and every business. Well, now that the price of that fiber optic went up at that time back in 2011, we had to go back and say, okay, we're going to commit to bringing a fiber drop to every home and business as long as they commit to taking a service from us. So trying to get in touch with all of those people and making sure that they understand the process, it was a little difficult to do, but that's what we had to do. So along the way, there was quite a few residential homes in some of our communities that maybe just didn't understand what was going on, or maybe the homes were empty. So we still struggle in some of those communities about trying to get new drops and stuff out to those homes, which has been very successful. We ran a lot of programs over the past 2 years, just trying to get more drops out there and educate people on what it takes to do to get those drops there. But we're plunging ahead.
What's the challenge there? Is it the distances involved? Is it the fact that you got to be able to schedule crews in advance? And what's the actual headache?
The biggest thing is because how new we are, right? So we didn't have the ability to put forth a bunch of extra capital 2 years, 3 years after we got up and running. One of the biggest things that I pride ourselves in is, we're fully self-funded. We're nonprofit. We're not subsidized by any of our member cities. A lot of municipalities have been scrutinized over the years, by some of the bigger companies, saying, hey, you don't have a place here in the market, and, you don't know what you're doing as far as providing broadband, and, you shouldn't be doing it. We, on the other hand, have been very, very successful, and we've kind of flown under the radar, and we've tried to do things smart and cost effectively. And for the first few years, we really didn't have the ability to go out and spend a bunch of capital and put more lines in. So, we were able to save a little bit of money and put a little money in the bank, and then build a little bit up and then reinvest and start getting the cost of those drops at a more affordable price for subscribers. So that was kind of the biggest hurdle, and I think we've got to that point now where we can effectively provide those services to those people that may have been missed at a more affordable cost.
That all makes a lot of sense. I guess the question in my mind is actually maybe even a little bit more technical. I mean, I'm guessing that you're not having a problem with like OLT ports. You probably had enough of those reserved, right? And having, I'm guessing you used a passive network with splitters. Is the challenge today then drop length because you just have to go so far to get a home, or what makes it more difficult to connect customers today?
It's not so much. It's not so much drop length. It as it is to, we have all the OLT ports. We have resources available to feed those customers. Our biggest thing is contractor availability, believe it or not.
I believe
much
it.
Building and
2020,
so much going on. It is extremely tough to be able to find contractor time, to be able to come in, because most contractors that are working on big projects, that are, they're putting in hundreds of drops a week, where, companies like us, we're not, we've got a majority of our communities built. So, we're just kind of coming back around and doing hit and miss, where we've got a handful a week. It's just tough to find the contractors that are, willing to leave those big jobs and come and do some of these small jobs.
That's what I was wondering about. So that's helpful. Have you been tempted at all by the state border to border fund to look at some grant money to try to expand to some of the areas around you?
We have. We definitely always keep it in mind every year. We look at what's being served. Where is their demand? Unfortunately, because of our, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because it's really not unfortunate. It's a fortunate thing, but fortunate for the wireless company that we've been working with over the past several years. Other than the real rural areas, in our area, I think we've really done a great job at being able to provide adequate speeds. But we're always open to, if there's opportunities for us to grow, we're always interested in it.
Who's the wireless company you're working with?
The wireless company that we work with is Back 40 Wireless. They're locally owned right out of Jackson.
Is there anything else I should ask you?
I'll just jump back to the Back 40 Wireless thing. I think that's one of the best partnerships that we have right now, and being able to provide the best broadband that we can, to the rural folks that we have an obligation to provide good service to.
Well, that's great. Travis, I really appreciate your time. It's been great getting a better sense of what's going on, and I'm looking forward to finding an excuse to get down there and visit you and see what's going on.
Hey, I'd love to have you down here, Chris.
That was Christopher talking with General Manager from SMBS, Travis Thies. We have transcripts for this and other podcasts available at muninetworks.org/broadbandbits. Email us at podcast@muninetworks.org with your ideas for the show. Follow Chris on Twitter. His handle is @CommunityNets. Follow muninetworks.org stories on Twitter. The handle is @MuniNetworks. Subscribe to this podcast and the other podcasts from ILSR, Building Local Power, and the Local Energy Rules podcast. You can access them anywhere you get your podcasts. You can catch the latest important research from all of our initiatives if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter at ilsr.org. While you're there, please take a moment to donate. Your support at any amount helps keep us going. Thank you to Arnie Huseby for the song, Warm Duck Shuffle, licensed through Creative Commons. This was episode 396 of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. Thanks for listening.